Good evening, everybody. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the Executive Director of Karis Circle. Karis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Karis Books, and Karis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We're really excited to be here with all of you from around the world to celebrate Roar Like a Goddess, every woman's guide to becoming unapologetically powerful, prosperous, and peaceful. We are welcoming the author, Acharya Shunya, in conversation with Tracy Stanley for this beautiful book. This event is co-sponsored by our friends from Raksha. Raksha's mission is to promote a stronger and healthier South Asian community through confidential support services, education, and advocacy. Raksha works towards healing, empowerment, and justice for survivors of violence, and they do so much more. We see Aparna in the crowd tonight. Hey, Aparna. Hey to all our friends who are watching. I was joking, we've had a double header with Raksha. We had an event with Raksha last night as well. So it's lovely to have folks back with us tonight. And I'll introduce Tracy Stanley, who is our conversation partner first. Tracy is the best-selling author of Radiant Rest and Empowered Life Self-Inquiry Oracle. A spiritual teacher for over 2 decades, Tracy weaves a sacred alchemy of yoga, nidra, self-inquiry, meditation, ancestor reverence, tantra, and devotion to create spaciousness for clarity, inner wisdom, and the innate luminosity that is the source of our true power. Tracy is currently writing her second book for Shambhala Publications, which will be released in 2023, and we will celebrate that one as well. We'll be very excited. So welcome, Tracy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
And the woman of the hour is Acharya Shunya. She is a truth teller who facilitates authenticity, self-remembrance, and divine feminine pathways to awakening within. She is the first female head of her 2,000-year-old Indian spiritual lineage. Shunya reinterprets and recontextualizes ancient teachings for modern times, empowering people everywhere to lead fearless, fulfilled, and enlightened lives. She is the host of the popular Shadow to Self podcast and is president of the Awakened Self Foundation and founder of the Vedic Global Inc. in California. She is also the author of the best-selling books Ayurveda Lifestyle Wisdom and Sovereign Self. She lives in Northern California, and we will drop her website in the chat so that if this is your first time learning about Acharya, you can learn more at her website and follow her podcast and all of her many beautiful offerings. So I want to encourage folks, wherever you're watching from, you may ask questions at any time by putting them in the Ask a Question tab at the bottom of the screen, or you can put them in the chat, and I'll be sure to move them over so that Tracy can incorporate them as the conversation goes on. But at this time, I would just like to say thank you to both of you for being here, and let's get on with the conversation.
Thank you, ER. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I think it would be nice for us to start with just a centering meditation. So if you feel comfortable, find a nice, comfortable meditative shape for yourself. And just allow your eyes to either close or you can soften your gaze. Just begin to notice that your body is breathing. And as you notice the body breathing, just begin to welcome the breath. Feel as though you can sense that the navel is expanding as the body breathes in and contracting as the body breathes out. So just feel that for the next 5 breaths. Navel rising and falling. Notice if there's any constriction or tension in the body that can be softened as you continue to feel this breath moving in and out. Feel the center of the forehead relax and soften. Eyes and eyebrows soften. Temples and cheeks. Bridge of the nose. Jaw. The neck and shoulders soften. And the chest softens. Feel the heart center soften, the navel, the pelvic region, and the hips. And as you feel yourself receiving the next breath in, feel as though it moves in through the top of the head and exhales out through the heart center. And just feel that 3 times. Inhale is received through the crown of the head. And exhale is released out through the heart center at the center of the chest, deep behind the sternum. One more time. Inhale. Breath is moving down and exhaling out through the heart center. As you receive the next inhale, just feel that inhale moving into the heart center as though it is traveling deep, deep, deep within. And then exhaling, releasing it out from the heart center. So as you inhale, you feel that this breath is being guided by prana deeper and deeper into the cave of the heart. So perhaps you feel that there is a cave inside of a cave, inside of a cave. And there is nothing to do other than allow the breath and prana to guide you there. So just 3 more breaths like that. Receiving the breath at the heart center. Feel it moving in deep and deeper and deeper. And exhaling, releasing. Now just feel as though you have been guided deep into this cave. And inside of this cave, there is this inner luminosity. Perhaps you can sense the source of that luminosity. Perhaps you just feel the vibration of the light. And as the body inhales, you feel as though the walls of the cave are expanding. And as the body exhales, they contract. So just feel and sense that you are inside of this cave. And this is a place that you remember. Let yourself be here just for 2 more breaths. And just feel that this luminosity within the cave is now expanding beyond the cave, filling the entire body, moving into the space outside of the body until you feel and sense that you are cocooned in this light that is emanating from the deepest, deepest cave of the heart. As we begin to transition from this space into the next space of sharing our time with this beautiful author, just begin to deepen your breath. Bring your hands and maybe rub your hands together briskly. Begin to feel some heat between the hands. And then place your hands somewhere on your body where you would like to receive a blessing, a healing, an anointment, and inhale deeply and feel that heat from your hands reaching, moving into the body. Feel it soothing your nervous system, almost like blue-gray healing light mapping out through the whole nervous system as this cooling, nurturing energy. One more time, inhale deeply. And exhale. And when you feel ready, just please begin to blink the eyes open and slowly, slowly, taking your sweet time, come back into the space. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Acharya Shunya, for writing this beautiful book, Roar Like a Goddess. If there is ever a book that came right on time, this is her. This is the book that we need for these times. And it's so beautiful to really hold this in my hands, because I have had many experiences with learning about the goddesses, specifically the three goddesses that are talked about in this book, Durga, Lakshmi, and Saraswati. And I've never felt as though the writing and the stories that are included in this book are so embodied that when you read them, it feels like you begin to know the goddess. It feels like you begin to feel not only who the goddess is, but who is the goddess within you. And that's something that is so unique that I've never read in another book. It's always felt as though the goddess is something external to us for us to understand, as opposed to us being able to embody the goddess. So I really love this book, Roar Like a Goddess, Every Woman's Guide to Becoming Unapologetically. And I think that that's a really powerful word, unapologetically powerful, prosperous, and peaceful. And so I'd like to, first of all, welcome you and thank you for having me to be here in conversation with you. This book is all about goddess power. And a lot of times, I think in Western culture, we hear the word goddess kind of thrown around a lot without really understanding the depth of what a goddess can really be. And so I would love for you to start by letting us know what you consider goddess power to be and why it was important to write this book in this time right now.
Tracy, thank you. Thank you for being here. Change comes through important conversations, one at a time. And in anticipation of our conversation, I felt the gravity of this opportunity. The goddess is an interesting concept. She is, as you said, in jest or in lightheartedness or in ritualism or sometimes even mockery of that divine possibility come to us in our present world as a bundle of contradictions, something airy, fairy. Sometimes she is the ultimate being, and sometimes she's just a hoot and no more than that. And the way the goddess comes to me and to my culture and to my Vedic tradition is that she is that absolute power, that Shakti, and that absolute power is feminine nature. And that power is not just power, but it is also with that radiance, that luminosity that comes from wisdom. That is why Shakti is really also the Devi, which comes from the root Sanskrit word div, D-I-V, which means that which is lit. Mm-hmm. And how wonderful that the meditation led us to that lit cave, that antarguha within us, to find that God is there. That Shakti that we all felt, because of which we all felt uplifted, you, me, and all of us, is because we visited with that presence. And our tradition did not hesitate to point that if this amazing power and beauty and wholeness has a gender, then it's feminine. And just like we, the individual, are keepers of our individual cosmos, individual stories, individual worlds, there are keepers of our collective cosmos, collective stories, collective power, which is then gods and goddesses. And goddess comes from that realm as that higher intelligence. And when you look at it from far, then she appears to be an inaccessible presence. But then when you see her in the universe as the light behind all lights, the power behind all power, Then she becomes a venerable intelligence. And when we find her within ourselves as that boundless capability to reinvent ourselves, to pick ourselves up, and to become the person we were meant to become, then she, the goddess, becomes none other and is none other but our own true self, the Atma, Apnoti Sarvamiti Atma, that boundless power within. And I try to bring these facets of the goddess in the book.
Well, you have done more than that, is what I feel. And in how you do this, I'm curious to know why you focused on these three particular goddesses that are also known as the three wisdom goddesses. Why was it important to bring these forward?
In the non-dual tradition, which underlies all the teachings and traditions that come from the Vedic tradition, the Sanatana Dharma, that precedes all religions, even from India. It's an original, universal tradition. There is that one Shakti, one non-dual power, feminine presence, but she can take multiple forms. And so we have hundreds and thousands of goddesses and sub-goddesses. But these three are considered somewhat of chief goddesses, important goddesses. They also have beautiful stories associated with them. All goddesses have some mythological story, but these have plenty to go with them. These are the goddesses also I grew up with. I have a mandir or a temple of these goddesses in my ancestral home in the holy city of Ayodhya in India. And I feel a kinship with them. I felt like I needed to turn to Durga and her stories when I felt unsafe and unsure in samsara, in this world. I turned to Lakshmi when I was ready to play and also give back. And now I walk with Saraswati.
Beautiful.
As my inner monk calls me home. I don't know why I became teary-eyed talking about the goddesses.
Yeah.
Maybe the part about them being a friend.
Yeah. A constant companion. One of the things that I mentioned before were the stories that you share. They're so embodied and they're so real. And I don't know that I've ever read stories like this before about the goddesses. How did you become such a beautiful storyteller?
It is said that the goddess storytelling is the hardest job, because when you tell those stories, you make and unmake destinies. And so the goddess chooses you to be a storyteller. But then when she chooses you, you become her slave, because now you are enslaved to bring light and be a true teller and to call a spade. No more self-deception or, hustling and playing games in the world. And I think I got chosen, definitely, to become a kathavacha. The story is known as katha, and I'm a kathavacha, a traditional storyteller. But I must say that the credit goes to my mom, because at bedtime her favorite go-to stories were goddess stories of Durga, of Lakshmi, of Saraswati, and of other goddesses too, of Parvati and Kali. And I'm not sure if it was a very wise parenting choice, because they would really rouse me up and I could hardly sleep and my heart would be beating. But I think from a soul to soul perspective, from a woman to woman perspective, my mother probably knew she was born with an ailing heart at birth and she wouldn't live long. So she really put those stories in my DNA. And when she transitioned, when I was all of 10, it's interesting. She left me behind with these stories. And even at her deathbed, I mean, she had so many things to tell me. And she said, the goddess is with you and the goddess is inside you. Her words came true a few decades later, not right away. I felt morose and lonely and abandoned for a while. When my son started growing up, I didn't know how to be a mother. I didn't even know how to be a woman on this planet, really. But gradually, these goddess stories that I heard, then I've started telling, helped me. I told them to myself first when I had to pick myself up, Tracy. And when I had to become safe and curate my safety, curate my comfort, curate a space for my voice. And in the process, I became a storyteller.
Beautiful. I would love if you would share a story with us of Durga. And maybe tell us, well, I think through the story, we learn about the goddess. So.
Well, there's one very beautiful story that's somewhat intense. I mean, it gives you the bad kind of goosebumps, but it gives you the right kind of insights, I think. And it has to do with respect. And we're going to look at Parvati, who is Durga, because Durga emerged from Parvati's third eye and Kali emerged from Durga's third eye. So they're already one goddess on a continuum. When Durga is happy and pleased, she's Parvati. When she's her usual strong self, she's Durga. And when she wants to book no business, no nonsense, she's like an electric being to deal with, and she's Kali. She's naked because she is embodying truth. So it's a story of even prior to Parvati, her incarnation was as goddess Sati. So it's really that continuum of goddesses. Prior to Parvati being Parvati, she manifested as Sati. That was her name. And she was born to the king and queen of the Himalayas. Daksha Prajapati was the king, and they had been childless for a while, so they had been worshipping the mother goddess Shakti, the divine feminine absolute power for a daughter or a child, any gender, but just give me a child. And lo and behold, Shakti came forward, and as they saw her beautiful face, time stopped. And they heard this voice boom across galaxies to reach them, which said, you asked, I've listened. I myself have come to you as your daughter. As a goddess, I ask for nothing but respect. As long as you respect me, I shall be your daughter. And thereafter, people were like, wow, what a miracle. But then as the human mind is typically, it gets jaded over time. It forgets miracles. It doubts them. It wants clinical evidence on the potential of miracles. And so they forgot and they started, raising their daughter like a regular daughter, which is fine. All was well until she chose this wild-looking yogi guy who people call Shiva, and some vowed he was God, as her future partner. And because her father was a king, he didn't approve. He wanted her to choose a princely candidate, but because she was the mistress of the universe, who could win her? Who could make her change her mind? And she chose Shiva. And she married him. Many years passed. She lived atop the Himalayas in the wilderness with Shiva, raising her divine children, Kartikeya Maharaj and Lord Ganesha, until she saw that people across the galaxies were traveling on moonbeams to reach the kingdom of the Himalayas. She saw the Moon King and his two wives dressed in most gorgeous moonbeams, going to this special event on earth. And she's like, where are you going? And they said, oh, don't you know? When are you coming? There's a great fire ritual, a yajna, at your dad's house, and we're invited. Of course you're invited. We'll see you in a bit. Sati was quiet. She had not been invited. Her husband had not been invited. So she went to her father's house uninvited, but the daughter's right to go. And she asked her father, why did you not invite me? And he said, well, let me tell you some truth here. And you know how the ego speaks the truth, it vomits the truth. And it's like a tiny little truth, but you think it's the ultimate. And he goes, you know, I'm not proud of our son-in-law. And I don't really want to invite him here wearing, you know, a tiger skin and snakes as ornaments around his neck. This is going to be so embarrassing when the who's who of the divine galaxy are going to be here. So that's why I didn't invite you. You insisted on marriage, fine. But this is a public event. We really can't have you two here. And now that you're here, you might as well borrow some clothes from your mother and look respectable. Sati was a woman by every right. She was a human by every outer demarcation. But there was a difference between her and all of us. We forget who we are, but she never forgot who she is. And she didn't forget her prime value, that if she manifests in a human form, respect is the first thing that she should get. And so she returns to her original form, and a fire breaks through her body, showering her entire being to ashes. And the very body that Daksha, her dad and mom, her human dad and mom had loved and spurned, spoiled and mocked at the same time, it falls to the ground, disfigured and discarded. And the goddess Sati comes back to her original form, which is this fiery, radiant flame, an electric flame. And then she says, I told you, I will stay with you only till you respect me. And then she left. And then we find later that as Parvati, she's reunited to her partner Shiva. And that's a different story. But what I learned here at 9 years of age or 10 years of age before my mom left her body was like, respect is important. And I bring this teaching into enkindling many an old agreements, many a jaded understandings. And I definitely light a matchstick to attachments and expectations that are suffocating me and coming with disrespect towards me. So I walk around as a result, still in my human body, but definitely I don't carry so much load on my being anymore. I lit a match to it.
Amazing. So what I receive from what you're saying is also that this practice of understanding and cultivating a relationship with the goddess is really a way of self-remembrance.
That's it. It is the remembrance that it depends on if you want to have a relationship with the goddess as child and divine mother. Then you can remember that you are a divine child of a divine mother. Or you can remember that divine cosmic being, that mother, has entered my being as my mothering self. And she deserves all the respect and all the love and all the adoration and all the reverence. And minimum is respect, because if we don't have respect, we don't have self-value. If we don't have self-value, we don't self-care. We don't even read books like the books you write and I write. And when we don't self-care, we really don't know how to show ourselves self-love. Because self-love without self-care is nothing.
That's right.
And self-care cannot even happen without self-value. And self-value becomes damaged without self-respect. And self-respect cannot happen unless and until there is self-recognition. And I have tried, not in this equation kind of way, but I'm unpacking this right now, but I have tried to instill these values through the book.
Yeah.
Because we keep telling, right, as teachers, we say, come on, you must love yourself or value yourself. And people hear us and they're back to the same place often. Not always, but often.
Well, I
And
think
for those people, self-respect would be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I feel like this book is so on time, right? For now, for our times, when dominant culture is really trying to tell us that we are unworthy. Not only are we unworthy, as we've been told for many, many years and millennia, but that we're unworthy of having a voice. We're unworthy of speaking the truth. We're unworthy of trying to change. And so this book and these goddesses show us a way in which we can have agency.
And then when we get upset, then we are unworthy of our rage too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Then we are hags and nags.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love where you talk about, and maybe we can talk about Durga and this idea of the blessed rage that you talk about. Because I think that a lot of times there's this kind of negativity around anger and rage, especially when it comes to women, right? That we're not supposed to show this kind of rage and this kind of anger. And we don't understand that this, Durga has this fierce compassion, the same way that a mother cub or a mother lioness will protect their cub.
And we once again come back to the non-dual paradigm that if everything is emanating from that radical oneness, one pure consciousness, then how can rage be not worthy? It's going to teach us something. It will inform us of boundary violation. And that's why in the book I talk about 3 kinds of rage: the unconscious, which we must all eschew. It's, it's habitual. It comes from entitlement and foolishness. It's like it's hot and we don't want it to be hot anymore, and we can be mad.
Right.
Or we want our favorite dress to still fit us and it doesn't,
Right.
It becomes conscious rage when we exercise to fit that dress. Becomes conscious rage when we feel it, but we don't necessarily become delusional because of it, because that is what unconscious rage does. It leads us into this state of mind known as moha, where we don't think right, where we bumble up our causes and consequences. But in conscious rage, our eyes open up even further. We recognize what to step away from, what to bring closer, to discern between what is serving the greater truth, Dharma, and what is not, and what parts of us have fallen asleep on the wheel, and what parts of us can still rescue us from our own subscriptions to darkness and ignorance. And then it's super conscious at times, where I felt this rage for a while. Felt this rage for not only women, but people of every gender and different colors and religions who have not been given safety and playfulness, the right to be playful and joyful, like in a relaxed way, and to be able to discover and self-recognize and self-realize that inner luminosity that you were talking about. We've come on the planet to do this, and we get caught up in like defending ourselves and protecting ourselves and explaining ourselves and justifying ourselves, then being shamed and being generally we get all warped up around this thing. And I had this anger for a while. But in superconscious anger, it's not personal. It's for everyone. It's for the environment. It's for people who don't look like you, but you feel their pain. And that's when you write books like Roar Like a Goddess.
Yeah.
But that journey wouldn't begin if I didn't allow myself to feel some of my rage. And I remember, because I'm a holder of an ancient lineage, which always has men, and we always talk about ahimsa and peace and kindness. Now, I didn't know what to do with this explosive experience of anger. And it is only in re-remembering the stories of the goddess and remembering that she holds the lotus of awakening in one hand and a sword in another, that I really got my archetype of who am I.
Yeah. And do you feel that with this book and some of the practices and stories that we can start to reveal who we are through the cultivation of the relationship with the goddess?
I believe that. I've been told by readers, because people have been reading advanced copies of it and now people are devouring it. And I've been told that it's like a river. You can't enter it without getting wet.
Yeah.
And remember, it's the story, it's the goddess's story. I was really an instrument for what the stories did to me. They picked up this scared girl child and turned her into a roaring goddess woman. I was scared of my own beauty, my own youth, my own capacities, my own knowledge. Scared because it's unsafe to show that.
Right.
Not scared because I don't own that. I own it, but it's still unsafe. To a place where I have not only curated the safety, but I'm trying to bring safety to others. So I really believe that these goddess stories are, if I may use the word, explosive and magically so.
Yeah, I agree. And so there's a lot of talk about dharma in the book, specifically also this idea of self-respect as dharma. Would you just illuminate for us what dharma means in case people watching don't know?
Dharma comes from the root Sanskrit word dhri. And dhri means to sustain, to hold. And the definition of dharma is dharanat iti dharmaha. That which holds, supports your mini universe and this whole universe together, where the unit is not separate from the whole and the whole is not separate from the unit, where maximally most of us are upheld in a noble way towards light. That is dharma. While certain dharma teachings became very famous, like compassion for others, karuna, or friendship towards others, maitri, became very famous. But the lesser known dharmas like Atma Samman, self-respect, Atmanishta, self-reverence,
Yes.
Atma Kripa, self-compassion, became less known because spirituality was shown as like something that's we've gone through it. We're just turning the corner. Where spirituality was about holiness, not wholeness. And so when you're being holy, you of course forget yourself and you negate yourself. But the Vedas have never said that. That's not the premise. The premise is dharma includes you, begins with you, and flows from a heart of self-love and self-acceptance. Because then only can you have real empathy and kindness towards another. There's only so much we can do for another and skip ourselves.
I think that's such an important teaching. It really is. How does that shape, that understanding shape you being the first female lineage holder in your tradition? And how does your understanding of the goddesses help to support that?
Tracy, first I thought I'll just follow the tradition. It's so easy. Wear the robes and teach those same teachings and teach those same books, which are, revered, and keep my goddess practice and growth as my private practice. For a long time, and I have some students who are participants here, I was teaching more of the non-dual teachings by Adi Shankara, who was a monastic celibate sage. What would he know about a woman, a mother, a daughter-in-law's rage and angst and pain? He would know a lot about Atma and Brahman, the self and the super self, and I bow to him. He's my guru. But I had to awaken the goddess within me. And I think all my teachings are changing furiously and fast because of this bringing of the need for a feminist voice in the Vedic tradition.
Yes.
I was growing up, I barely knew English and I didn't know the word feminism, but I am clearly a feminist because every woman has to be today. Is it even a choice now?
Yeah.
I'm also an activist for equality and justice. So whatever are those names, labels, bring them on because I'm going to wear all those hats. I took it personally when George Floyd was strangulated to death. So I come from a tradition anyway where my ancestors too did not turn a blind eye to what was going on in the social political scenario of India. They rose against British colonialism. They rose against a caste system that was bringing India down. They rose against inequality. They really preached the gospel of oneness and truth. And so in my time, I'm going to use this tool of the goddess archetypes to empower the journey to dharma and moksha, to goodness and to liberation. For sure.
Thank you for that. I wonder if you can share a little bit about each one of the goddesses, like that is presented in the book, and why they are important in this particular time that we find ourselves in, which is like this, in my opinion, this space of deep transition and unknown, that we're always in transition, but it's really obvious now, even if you're not looking for the subtle transitions, that we're in a space of unknown. How can these goddesses help to support us and our practice?
So I thought it was sequential earlier. That's how I started out thinking, that you begin with Durga and you establish, you learn to roar with, self-sourced authority. You roar with power. You learn to say your no's and your yeses. Everything has power. Your yes has power. Your no has power. Your every word has power. And through power, you have healthy boundaries and healthy options to reinvent yourself and to be the person you're meant to be, not based on scripts, because that takes power. Like thinking, well, that's the script and this is me and who am I? That takes like some raw power and courage to be you, right? To be Tracee, to be Shunya. It takes courage.
Yeah.
I thought like you only need Durga then, and definitely the Durga part of my book really helps with those very real kind of work we all have to do as women, like even accepting our marital status. Are we married or divorced or spinster or widow? What's going on? Are we straight or gay or, we're gender expansive? What's going on here? To really be bright and beautiful and courageous in our body being, we need Durga stories Durga's wisdoms, Durga's insights, and Durga's grace. We need all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to come back with this caveat that I thought I'm done, but you're never done.
No. that's a lesson that
And I'd
keeps
love to
coming.
hear from you too. Like you're done with one round of like fighting off the demons, and they come back again at a new next level. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. My experience is that you when you first start doing this work and you sort of see the demons and you see all of I love how you talk about them as asuras in the story and in the books, is that they come back in a different form, more subtle. And it actually requires more discernment and more awareness to see them, because it's like at some point, it's like they go from the most gross to the most subtle, and they vaporize. Eventually, it's like they're kind of seeping underneath the, the crack under the door. And if you're not awake and aware, then you don't see until you do. And so I think that's so amazing, because it keeps us continually in practice, continually awake, and knowing that it's never done. It's never
done.
Yeah.
And these gotten insights, again, like at one level, I don't have a problem saying no or saying yes or not being a stereotype, but then it gives birth to other kinds of delusions and also fears.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to look at them. So Durga keeps helping with that, like really coming into alignment with authority that is lit from within, that is naturally dharmic, and and at this, and she's ever ready for battle, which is required on earth, but she's reposing on her lion, playing with his hair, kind of when she's relaxed,
Yeah.
and even learning how to embody that Shakti in a gentle kind of way. When I'm playing with my puppy or talking to my husband, like, how does that look like when you're an embodiment of Durga? And these teachings keep taking me back there, because there are times when Durga is relaxed and laughing, and her laughter is like wind chimes on earth, so it's like that.
Oh, I love that, wind chimes on earth. That's so
Yeah, all the wind chimes together, and that's her laughter.
beautiful.
And Lakshmi, this goddess, really loves balance. Her four hands represent the four goals: Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Dharma, we discussed. Artha is abundance. Kama is pleasure and apologetic, not to have babies, but just to have pleasure for pleasure's sake.
Yeah.
And then finally, Moksha, which is same as Mukti or Nirvana, like that ultimate freedom to know your goddess-like self. She asks us to lead a balanced life, and in the process with Lakshmi's archetype, I have learned to not think that poverty is somehow a badge of our holiness. Nor do we have to be graspy and crazy for money. It's like I'm developing this new relationship with desire, where I neither pull it in and get stuck to it, nor do I push it away. I just sit with it, with Mother Lakshmi, and say, and we lock our eyes, and I go, well, look at that. Look at this new desire in my heart. Wow. What are we going to do with this? So it's a very relaxed, spacious, expansive way of being with a desire in the material world. I think something you will endorse.
Yes,
Something
absolutely.
expansive and restful.
Yeah.
And I see it happening in an intuitive and non-rational kind of way. It changes its colors, it changes its textures, and then the desire that does get fulfilled has a lot of Lakshmi quality to it. And I think as women and as people of any gender who've ever been disempowered, Lakshmi allows us to breathe into our power and to come into it in a worldly sense. And to say, and I was criticized for saying that, hey, even having a fancy handbag is Lakshmi's blessings. But again, in a non-dual perspective, how can you separate Lakshmi from anything? I refuse to put her up on an altar and put my handbag in my closet of shame.
Right. Right.
My
Yeah.
pretty handbag is going to be on that same altar saying, thank you, Ma, for giving me those skills and that balanced life to even play with a handbag while I have taken a human form. But this is really all your play. But, that's a higher level conversation
Yes.
that I keep
Yeah.
insisting having. And finally, the Saraswati archetype in the book takes us to a deeper journey yet and towards ourselves, but then we come across trauma because we all have it. And I even talk
Yes.
about the
Yes.
patriarchy induced trauma, misogyny induced trauma, and just trauma from living in a divisive world as
Yeah.
second class citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Or, we may have something that's not working for us. So we're not mainstream anymore. Either our color or our religion or our language or our social status or our social media status,
Mm-hmm.
something's off.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have trauma of rejection, of not belonging.
Yes, that's such a deep, deep one.
It's
That's
such
a
a
deep
deep
wound.
trauma.
Yeah, it really is.
And this is where we use Saraswati's insights to come to terms with ourselves for radical acceptance. Because even in her mythology, she's slighted in her own
Mm,
mythology.
mm,
And it's interesting that Durga does not choose a partner, or people slight her and she slides back big time.
yeah.
Lakshmi chooses to leave a disrespectful situation,
Mm-hmm.
and Saraswati stays on, but
Mm,
on her own terms.
mm,
So we get all these ideas, and we get ideas how to deal with difficulties, with trauma, with self rejection, self abandonment, because I had some of that going in my own life.
mm.
And when Saraswati helped me heal completely. And as a result, um, she's the one who takes us to a very deep encounter. And she's often seen lost in her music, the lute, the
Yeah.
veena, which represents she has quietened out the worldly noises and she can finally hear her voice, which I
Mm,
compare to her own.
beautiful. Can you say a little bit more about self-abandonment? Because this is something that I observe a lot, and I've observed it in my own life in the form of self-betrayal and self-abandonment, where maybe for me at least, being in a relationship that ended in betrayal and thinking like, oh, he betrayed me, woe is me, and then sitting with it and realizing, oh, I betrayed myself. Because at some point I had the discernment of the knowing this was not the right one, this was not the right thing, there was something that was off, and I kept going. And there I left myself behind in part of that. So can you talk about Saraswati and self-abandonment?
We cannot come into wholeness if we don't become aware of our habit or penchant of self-abandonment. But the problem is that as earthly humans, while we are doing our womaning or other gendering, we are seduced into self-abandonment. We've been abandoning ourselves, Tracy, you and I, from when we were babies, and we didn't even know.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my maternal grandmother telling me that I walked with my head held high, and she didn't kind of like that. She
Mm-hmm.
she
Yeah.
felt like I was too proud, and I was too, and that my father's family was raising me to be this wild spiritual woman. Thank God for that. But my mother's mother felt like I should be more shy with more decorum.
Mm,
So then when I went to her house to avoid trouble, I'd be a bit more shy and
mm,
I'd bite my teeth before speaking. But those are all moments of self abandonment to fit in.
yeah.
And when we choose a man or any other gendered partner, just because we should be in a should haves, would haves, could haves around
Mm,
relationships, we didn't listen to that voice that Saraswati says, listen, you'll hear it. If you just, her head is down and she's listening to her own music. We don't listen. So we've gotten into that habit of self-abandonment. And it's not like we have to do years of therapy. We could, but it's not necessary. I think it is like, it's such a relief to know, well, it's not really personal. We've been doing this for some time now.
Yeah.
But let's look at Saraswati here. And she's like a river also. She's, in fact, Indian civilization is known as the Saraswati River civilization. She's the river in the Vedas mentioned. And my Baba, my guru, had said that look at the river. She does, when she flows towards the ocean, which is to meet her own higher self, she does not leave even a drop of herself behind.
Yes.
She takes her muddy parts and her stained parts and her filthy parts and her fungi parts and all those parts forward. And that was just a casual conversation we had because we used to visit the river a lot, River Sarayu, where we lived. But then when I was like self-abandoning and then repackaging myself, like what parts are presentable to the world, what parts are not presentable to the world, I remembered this conversation and it was like somebody punctured my heart at that time with like, wait, radical self-acceptance like Saraswati is always an option. And so in this book, my 55-year-old respected best-selling, well-known author is accompanied by my 20-something divorced, broken woman who lived inside me with big dark circles, shamed and blamed by her culture. And we co-write this book. And it was such luminosity. So abandonment begins by telling the truth and by going deep inside to find goddesses who spoke the truth and who accepted themselves. So what are these archetypes are like, these storytellings and these archetypes are like non-rational knowing, because I can speak 100 words and I can tell a story in 10 words and the story will remain. And the way Goddess accepted herself, she didn't think, oh no, I'm Saraswati, the enlightener and the awakener, and look at my domestic situation. It's anything but amazing, and I better cover up this part of myself. Instead, she became more of who she is through her personal sorrow, discerned as, this is not me, this is them, just like you did. This is not me, this is that person.
Yeah.
And I guess that, I wonder if that helps, but it did help me in the self-acceptance.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, let's look to see if there are any questions. I don't see any questions here, but I see a lot of people giving thumbs up and beautiful and Jai Ma. So I feel like we're resonating with what's being shared. And so let's see if there's any last question. I think it would be a good moment to close. We're almost at time. I want to remind people just about this book. So beautiful. And I'd like to say thank you so much to you for taking the time, for sharing the wisdom, for the remembering that was required to bring these stories back for us and to really share them because they're so sacred. Thank you. Thank you so much. And also, I think ER is going to come back and let us know where we can buy the book.
Yes, thank you both so much. For everybody who doesn't yet have a copy, you may click this teal button at the bottom of your screen to buy Roar Like a Goddess from Karis. It really does help us when you buy event books from us, and we appreciate it very much. You also, if you already own a copy of the book, you can potentially buy one to donate to a library or give to a friend. You also can support the work of Karis by donating to our nonprofit, Karis Circle. Karis Circle is how we fund all of the events that we do. So thank you to everyone who has joined us in the chat and has been a part of this. thank you to both of you for this beautiful conversation. We're delighted to get to help celebrate this important book. So I hope that you'll both stay safe and be well, and that we will get to host you again virtually or in person in the future.
Thank you so much, ER.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Have a good night, everyone.